Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking into something quite somber, a recent aviation incident in Dhaka, Bangladesh. It's a tragedy that happened incredibly fast and had a huge impact on a school, its community,
Hmm.
really, the whole nation. Yeah, and for this deep dive, our source material is all packed into this document called planecrash.pdf. It's got, well, pretty much everything. A detailed timeline, the key incident reports, some really harrowing eyewitness accounts, and also the technical background on the plane involved. So our mission today is twofold, really. First, to understand the sequence of events, the impact, the facts, but also, maybe more importantly, to uncover the human side, the heroism we saw, and of course, the immense loss.
And inevitably, this brings up bigger questions, doesn't it, about aviation safety, especially with older military aircraft, and, well, accountability.
Exactly. We'll pull out the key insights from these sources for you, giving you a clear picture of what happened and what it all means. Okay, let's start at the beginning, the exact moment things went wrong. It was 1:06 p.m., Bangladesh Standard Time, July 21st, 2025. That's when a Bangladesh Air Force FT-7BG-1 training jet tail number 701 took off from BAF base Bir Udum AK Kanker in Dhaka, Kermitola area. It was supposed to be just a routine training flight.
And what strikes me immediately from the reports is just how fast it all happened. It wasn't a gradual problem, bang. A critical failure, and crucially, at a very low altitude.
Yeah, low altitude is key here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It just drastically cuts down the pilot's options.
Yeah.
No time for standard procedures, really.
And even the nature of that failure. The initial reports are a bit conflicting, aren't they?
They are. Some sources mention an engine flame out, basically the engine just quits.
Mm.
Others talk about a control stick lockout, meaning the pilot literally couldn't steer the plane.
Either way, a catastrophic failure.
Instantly critical, yeah,
Yeah.
especially for the pilot involved.
And that pilot was Flight Lieutenant MD Tukir Islam. The documents highlight something really poignant here. This was his very first solo flight.
His first solo, wow. And the immediate order was to eject,
Yes, that's what the reports say. Eject immediately.
which, raises that terrible question. Ejecting at such a low altitude, what are the standard safety protocols there? And how does a pilot on his first solo flight make that split-second calculation? His own life versus potentially people on the ground.
It's an unimaginable choice. The document explains that ejecting below a certain height is incredibly risky. The parachute might not deploy fully, and the seat itself could become a projectile, endangering civilians below.
So his options were basically terrible.
Grim, yeah. Instead of ejecting, he tried to do something incredibly selfless. He attempted to steer the failing jet away from the densely packed residential areas. He was aiming for a more open, sparsely populated spot.
A heroic effort in an impossible situation. But ultimately, the aircraft was just uncontrollable.
It seems so. Despite his efforts, control was lost. The combination of the failure type and that critically low altitude, it just wasn't recoverable.
Leading to the impact.
Yes. At 1:18 p.m., the jet hit the main gate of the Haider Ali building at Milestone School and College. It didn't just hit the gate, it went through it, penetrating a two-story classroom block, tearing through another exit.
And instantly, a massive explosion, a fireball.
Exactly. And if you look at the building structure, hitting the main gate like that, going into the classrooms, the reports suggest the structural integrity just vanished instantly.
Which explains the catastrophic collapse that followed.
Right, a large section of the building just came down, collapsing onto floors where younger kids nursery up to grade 3 were actually in class at the time.
Just awful to contemplate.
And the eyewitness accounts, they're chilling. One says, "We saw the plane engulfed in flames. Smoke and screams filled the air." It paints a truly horrific picture, but even in that chaos, the sources highlight incredible bravery. We absolutely have to talk about Mahi Inchowdhury, a teacher.
Yes, her story is remarkable.
She apparently ran into the burning building, into the fire, and managed to pull more than 20 children out to safety. Just incredible courage.
It really is.
Yeah.
An instinctive, selfless act. Pulling out over 20 kids. And the tragic part is she succumbed to her own injuries hours later.
Yes, she did. She's been called a guardian angel across Bangladesh, a symbol of pure self-sacrifice in the face of, well, horror.
Absolutely.
Now, the rescue effort, the reports do say it started quickly. Fire units were there by 1:2 p.m., so just minutes after the crash.
Which is fast, considering the circumstances.
Yeah, 9 fire trucks, 6 ambulances initially. Border guards, Army personnel also arrived pretty fast to secure the area, help out.
But the scale of it,
Yeah.
you can see from the accounts, it immediately overwhelmed the standard emergency services. They had to improvise, didn't they?
Massively. Ambulances were quickly full or couldn't get through maybe, so rescuers were using anything they could find. Rickshaws, motorbikes, army trucks. People were carrying the injured out physically.
Imagine being a parent there,
Hmm.
watching that unfold. The panic must have been overwhelming.
Unimaginable. The reports say the main fire was mostly under control by around 2:45 p.m., and victims were being rushed to several major hospitals. Dhaka Medical, the Specialist Burn and Plastic Surgery Institute, the Combined Military Hospital.
Okay, so let's talk about the human cost. The numbers are just staggering.
They are. The initial ground fatality count was at least 19, but that number tragically rose in the following days to 31.
31 lives lost.
And that includes around 25 children, one or maybe two teachers, and the pilot, Flight Lieutenant Islam.
And the injured.
Approximately 171 people injured, and the reports specify that 78 of those were in critical condition or had severe burns. Around 60 or more needed very specialized care.
And there's another grim aspect the reports mention, identification.
Yes. The fire was so intense, it meant that many victims were, well, the reports say cremated beyond recognition.
Which necessitates DNA testing. A long, agonizing process for families already dealing with unimaginable grief.
Absolutely adds another layer of trauma. So the government response, what did the sources say there?
Well, the interim prime minister, Mohammed Yunus, acted quickly. He declared the next day, July 22nd, National Day of Mourning. Flags at half-mast.
And an investigation was launched.
Yes, a high-level military investigation committee was set up almost immediately. And the ISPR, that's the Inter-Services Public Relations, wing their initial statement pointed towards mechanical failure as the cause.
Okay, but that wasn't the end of the story in terms of public reaction, was it?
Not at all. Beyond the grief, there was this huge, immediate surge of public demand. People wanted answers. They wanted accountability. It wasn't just local, it became a national issue very fast.
Right. Protests started springing up. Students, parents, demanding transparency, demanding accountability, wanting compensation for the victims.
And crucially, calling for the grounding of these older jets. They specifically called them outdated.
Yeah, that became a major rallying cry. The reports mentioned demonstrations near the Secretariat in Dhaka, the government center, and things got tense. Tear gas was used at one point as people pressed for direct answers.
So this brings us to the aircraft itself, the F-7BG-1. To really get the context, we need to look at what this plane actually is.
Let's do that. Our sources give us some important background. It's basically an export version of a Chinese jet, the Chengdu J7.
And the J7 itself is based on an even older design, the Soviet MiG-21. We're talking late 1950s technology at its core, right?
Essentially, yes. Now, these specific planes, the F-7BG-1s, were delivered to Bangladesh relatively recently in 2013.
But it's still fundamentally an older generation jet. Its role,
No.
mostly training, some limited light combat maybe. It's a pretty basic aircraft by modern standards.
And here's a key point from the technical background. China itself, where the original J7 comes from, they decommissioned their J7s by 2023.
Right. Yet variants like this F-7BG-1 are still flying in Bangladesh, Pakistan, Iran, Nigeria, several countries. It definitely raises that question. What's an acceptable lifespan for aircraft based on such old designs?
And this crash happening the way it did, it just pours fuel on those long simmering concerns, doesn't it? About the age of these jets, how well they can be maintained, the safety margins.
Especially, as you said earlier, when they're being flown on training missions at low altitude over densely populated cities like Dhaka. The risk factor seems incredibly high.
So where does the investigation stand now? The military committee is still working.
Yes, it's ongoing. And the sources detail what they're looking into. It seems quite thorough on the face of it.
Yeah.
Maintenance logs, history of parts replacements, the pilot's training records, communications about altitude.
And importantly, they're examining that decision, the pilot choosing to steer rather than eject. Was it feasible? What went into that split-second choice?
But there's a recurring question here, one highlighted by critics in the reports. Transparency.
How so?
Well, the investigation is being run by the military. The reports state that civilian aviation authorities aren't directly involved.
Ah, okay. And critics argue that lack of civilian oversight could, well, diminish the transparency of the whole process.
That's the concern, yes. And you hear it echoed in the demands from the victims' families. They're calling for independent civilian oversight. They want clear accountability if systemic failures are found.
And compensation, of course. Comprehensive packages for what they've lost.
Understandably.
So, in these days since the crash, Dhaka is grappling with this complex mix of grief, anger, and also maybe some hope for change. You have families desperately seeking truth, teachers holding vigils, students demanding a safer future.
It feels like more than just a terrible accident. The sources frame it almost as a national reckoning, a confrontation with the risks of using aging equipment, perhaps without fully acknowledging those risks.
That's a powerful way to put it. As this investigation continues, maybe the biggest hope is that this tragedy truly becomes a catalyst.
A catalyst for grounding aircraft deemed too dangerous, for enforcing stricter no-fly zones over cities.
Exactly, making sure that schoolyards of all places remain safe, sacred spaces.
We have to remember the 31 people who lost their lives, and the scores of others whose lives was forever altered.
Absolutely. In their memory, perhaps the only way forward is to commit fully to safety, to accountability, and to just unbreakable vigilance.